There you are! Hi everybody! Chodesh Tov. Today is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. It is so special to celebrate Rosh Chodesh with everybody here. Hello! Hi Shelly, this is Hava, Jenny, our artist today, Chana, other Chana, Sharon, Tiferet, Tamara, hey Karen, Miriam, Bryna, and Marilyn. Welcome. Thanks everyone for joining. Today is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. We're at Siftach celebrating Rosh Chodesh, and today we are joined by local talented artist and designer Chana Rachel Gaffin. She is an art teacher, and today she has taught us some really incredible watercolor techniques to paint these beautiful affirmations and mantras that we're going to play. So anyone who's watching, this is some of Chana's work and some of the techniques that she's teaching us. My favorite is the wash, like the, what's it called? The wash? The wash technique. It's like a really beautiful gradient technique, and we're going to, anyone who's watching could do the same thing with or without watercolors. We're going to make little mantras and affirmations to put around our house at eye level, because in Tammuz we're correcting our vision and we're elevating our vision, so we want to be in touch with a higher way of thinking. So anywhere such as good morning gorgeous on my mirror when I wake up, today's going to be the best day ever near my bed when I wake up, reminders to think positively, in the car to remember, I put one in the car to say you are exactly where you're meant to be. Different reminders, look for the good in others, look for the good in yourself. Different reminders at different eye level places in your house, like on your door, on your fridge, wherever you look to, and you would see to have these little affirmations. So I could post a link of all the suggestions I had, and it's just such a good reminder when you have them, and like it reminds you and like makes a little switch. Okay, so what is Tammuz all about? So let's talk about for anyone who is, anyone here is their first time joining a Rosh Chodesh class? Anne is probably one of the first people I met when we moved here at Yehudis' house, like before we met anybody a long time ago. So what was I saying? Whoever is new to the Rosh Chodesh series, the way that we learn the monthly series, does someone mind asking them to lower the music? I just can't focus. Thank you so much. They usually close it for the duration of our little shir. So the monthly series focuses on different elements of the month, mostly based on Sefer Yetzirah. The Bnei Yissaschar has a book that compiles all the different Torah sources on the month, and Sefer Yetzirah is an early Kabbalistic text attributed to Avraham Avinu, and even as early as Adam Rishon, according to some opinions. So it's one of the earliest Kabbalistic texts. It's the text that describes the creation, the coding of the world, how Hashem coded the world with the letters, and all of the different, literally the encodings of the creation of the world. It's the same book that the Maharal used to create the Golem of Prague, and so on and so forth. So one of the things that Sefer Yetzirah does, it goes through every month of the year. And in this class, we focus and we talk about every month, obviously the name of the month. We learn about the Zodiac side of the month. So in this month, in Tammuz, it's on the source sheets. Whoever just came, I have some more source sheets. There's a letter of the month. There's a Zodiac side of the month, which is Cancer, Crab. Raise your hand if anyone here is a Cancer. Sign, just one. Okay. Exciting. Mazel tov. When's your birthday? Tomorrow. Happy birthday! Oh, it's so special. And we focus on the letter. It says in Sefer Yetzirah that each month is created by one of the letters of the alphabet. That letter creates that month. Hashem creates the month and channels the energy through that letter. In this month, anyone know what it is? It's on your paper. It's Chet. And we also, just like there's 12 Shvatim and 12 months, every Shevet is connected to every month is connected to one of the Shvatim. And this month, it is Reuven. And my favorite part is that every month has one of the senses. So, hi Karen, there's not just 5 senses in Sefer Yetzirah. We learned that in every month, one of the senses in our bodily sense is heightened. It's the tikkun for that month. It's the sense that we are tapping into. We can tap into elevating that sense much more than any other month. And in this month, it's a sense of sight. So it is one of the 5 senses. Other times it could be the sense of dreaming. It could be the sense of laughing, sexuality, different senses in our body. So now we're elevating sight. And lastly, what we're going to do today is that in every month, there's 12 different ways you can arrange Hashem's name. We know that the flow of energy to the creation of our world comes through Hashem's 4 tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of Hashem, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And there's mathematically 12 ways to rearrange the letters of Hashem's name. This month, it's Hey, then Vav, then Hey, then Yud, which is actually exactly backwards of how it normally is. In Nisan, it's exactly forward, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. So we actually learned that the spring months, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, all start with Yud, so they're all controlled by Yud. And then the summer months, beginning with Tammuz, Av and Elul, all begin with Hey. They're all controlled mostly by the letter Hey, which is the letter in Kabbalah of the letter of Bina, which is also the mother, and it's also the letter of water. Because Bina, that intuitive understanding, that depth of water, So it's aside for that, on a side point, Tammuz is a water sign. In Cancer is a water sign. If anyone knows the 4 elements, each month has one of the 4 elements. Each of the elements have 3 different months. So of the summer months, there's going to be water, and earth, air, and fire. I don't know how that works, but because there's only 3 summer months. But Tammuz is the water sign of Hay, which is the water segment. So Tammuz has a lot of water in it, and anyone who knows anyone who's a Cancer might recognize that they're very sensitive people because they have a lot of water. The sign is the crab, which lives in water. It's also a water sign according to the sun sign. It's a water month of Hay, and of the 3 letters of Hay, it's like the first of the Hay. There's a lot of water in Tammuz, and water is emotions. Water is the seed of all emotion. So Cancers tend to have extreme sensitivity, a lot of emotion, and a lot of sensitivity, sometimes buried under their shell, under a hard shell of like not caring and being like immune to caring, but really deep down there's a ton of emotion and a lot of depth and emotional depth going on inside a Cancer. Okay, let's dive into the different aspects of the month and how they connect and how we can tap into the special powers of Tammuz. So let's begin with let's talk about Tammuz as a month in history, right? There's no big Chagim in Tammuz, but what do we know about Tammuz? What happens historically in Tammuz?
Well, the Babylonians went up the walls.
The 17th of Tammuz, right? We all know that it's a fast day. There's 5 tragic events. So Tammuz, at first glance, there's nothing positive in Tammuz. It's a tragic time. On the 17th of Tammuz, 5 tragic events happened before the walls where Jerusalem were sieged by the Romans. Does anyone know what else happened? There's 5 events. First, Moshe broke the luchos. When he came down with the luchos for the first time, he came down on the 17th of Tammuz, and these Jewish people were sitting with the Chet Ekel, so he broke the luchos. So it was the day of the Chet Ekel. Then there's 3 things that are less known. When the Babylonians sieged Jerusalem, they were forced to stop bringing the sacrifices because there was no more sheep left. So that was the day when they stopped bringing sacrifices. Apos Tammuz burned the Torah. An idol was placed in the Beis HaMikdash, and 5th, the walls of Jerusalem were breached. So these are 5 negative recurring things that all happen on the same day. What else happened in Tammuz? Anyone else know? These are much lesser known things. So that's really the main event of Tammuz. And starting from the 17th of Tammuz begins the 3 weeks of mourning. And lesser known events in Tammuz, historical events, are Gimel Tammuz. Does that ring a bell to anybody?
Yes.
The Rebbe's yards, exactly. So before the Rebbe's passing, something else happened on Gimel Tammuz many, many years before, in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's the time, if you've heard of Shemesh B'Givon, it's the time when Hashem stopped the sun, so that the Jewish people can win the war, right? So that was also a miraculous, a huge miracle, where as long as the sun was up, they were able to continue killing their enemies, and is Yeshua. It was times of Yeshua held up the hands of Moshe so he can hold them up and keep the sun from setting to kill as many of their enemies before it got dark and they wouldn't be able to see their enemies. So that was another miracle, positive, light thing that happened in Tammuz. Many years later, 28 years ago from this year, was the passing of the Rebbe on Gimel Tammuz. But Gimel Tammuz was actually a holiday in Chabad before it became the passing of the Rebbe, because the Rebbe's father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, we call him the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe Yosef Schneerson, he was released. He had a death sentence for spreading Torah in Russia, but it was against the law in the Soviet Union, and they sentenced him to death. And on Gimel Tammuz, they annulled the death sentence, so his life was spared. But we actually only celebrate it on his day of actual being released from the prison on Yud Beis Tammuz. So in Chabad, we have some really special days in Tammuz. We have Yud Beis Tammuz, which is a big Yom HaGeula, because the previous Rebbe was able to come back and continue spreading Torah in the dark places of the Soviet Union, and spared from death. And Gimel Tammuz, which is the Rebbe's passing, which is not a happy day, but it is a very meaningful and holy day, because we learn on the day of the passing of a tzaddik. Actually, in this week's Parsha, Tammuz always falls out in the beginning, corresponding with Parshas Chukas. And this week's Parsha, I was going to mention it a little bit, is when Moshe Rabbeinu, Miriam passes away, and Aaron passed away in this week's Parsha. And when Miriam passes away, we learned that the beginning, and it says Miriam passed away. What does that have to do with the laws of the paraduma? To say that just like a paraduma, a red heifer brings atonement, right? It brings atonement. Also, the passing of a tzaddik brings atonement. And we learned that when a tzaddik passes away, all of his merits from his entire life are shining on that day and come to help us. and come to bring light to all of us. So the day of a Tzaddik's passing, like we learned by the Rashbi, right? On Lag BaOmer is the day of his holiness. He said it's a day of my joy because all of my teachings were revealed on this day, and I'm no longer limited to a physical body. Now we have, exponential time. Like thousands of people can come to the Ohel a day and receive brachos or connect to, a holy place, a grave of a tzaddik. So although it's a very tragic day still for us, we see that the effects of the Lubavitcher Rebbe continue because the amount of shluchim that went out after the Rebbe passed away and before, every year at the Kinnis of Shluchais, when I've been, they have roll call, which they announce like every country, and all the Shluchais stand up and everyone claps for them. I got to announce roll call one year. I got to announce Israel and half the countries. It's long. It used to be done by Rabbi Kolarski, but it got too long. It was like exhausting for him. So now the different Shluchais do it. So at the end, after they announce all the countries, they say, well, all the Shluchas who went out before Gimel Tammuz, please stand up. And you see maybe like a few hundred. And then you say, well, all the Shluchais who went out on Shluchas after the Rebbe passed away, please stand up. And there's thousands of Shluchais. And it gives you chills to see that the Rebbe's message and effect continues much stronger even after his passing, although we would rather it not be this way. So that is, so Gimel Tammuz is a big day. This year we are celebrating it for men on Thursday night with Rav Shlomo Katz in our shul here in the Dagan, and for everybody, families, on Shabbos at our shul, we're going to have like a lunch, so everyone's going to get to spend the day for bringing, and it's going to be very special. Okay.
Can't you take the Tiyul to the Ohel?
A lot of people fly into the Ohel for Gimel Tammuz. Yeah, it's a time to go there. Okay, so that's the history of the month. Now let's talk about the name of the month, Tammuz. Does anyone know anything about the word Tammuz, what it might mean? So there's a few interesting meanings. So it's actually brought down in the Torah in Yechezkel. And it's brought down to describe an idol that Yechezkel is speaking about how far the Jewish people have strayed under the rulership of Menashe, who was a corrupt king. And it says, let me read you the pasuk, that the woman would weep to the idol of Tammuz. Let me see if I brought it. I don't know if I brought the actual, I thought I had the pasuk, but yeah, it says, Vayave Otzi al Pesach Shar Beis Hashem Eshel Etzafona V'Hine Sham Anashim Yoshos Mevakos Tammuz. It says that they, literally right by the entrance of the Beis Hamikdash, the woman would be weeping over this tragic idol of Tammuz. So if you look up historically, what is Tammuz? Tammuz was a non-Jewish, a pagan idol that the Jewish people became adopted many of the pagan idol worship practices, and the Rambam actually describes it. And why is it called Tammuz? Rashi says Tammuz means in Babylonian language heating, a hot furnace, and it means hot. So it makes sense that Tammuz is the hottest time of the summer. So it means heat, and that's why we use the word Tammuz to describe this month, which is the hottest month of the summer. We reach the summer solstice, which is the hottest day of the summer in Tammuz. And after the summer solstice, when it gets the hottest, usually it lowers a little bit after that. So what were the women weeping? There was this pagan idol Tammuz who was described as tragic, who had a tragic life. Who led a tragic life. He had tremendous love, and he loved and lost. And the way that they served this idol is that they had holes in his sockets of his eyes. They would light a fire underneath it, and then they would light this lead on fire, and then the lead that they put in the eyes would melt and then pour out of his eyes, so it looked like the idol was weeping. And then all the women, they had to play about the tragic life of Tammuz, this big special celebrity guy who had a tragic life and lost everything. And then they would worship the idol afterwards by burning this lead, by melting the lead, so it poured out of the eyes of Tammuz, and it looked like he was crying. And all the women would weep along with him. And he says, why did it happen during Tammuz when they show this this show? Because Tammuz, they were all weeping. It was like the summer solstice, the height of the summer, weeping for all the end of the summer and the love that's lost and all the lost opportunities, that everything's over, that our good times are over, and so we're gonna have to go back into the winter months and back into the year. So it was a tragic weeping. So nowadays we learn that we don't have the desire to serve idols the same way they did, but in our lives, the idol worship of Tammuz is falling into victimization, weeping for all the things we've lost, and getting stuck in that space of crying over everything that we're lost and staying there rather than climbing out of that hole of despair. Obviously, people are sad and things happen, but choosing to enjoy being in despair, victimization, which is actually one of the negative potential cancer traits of someone who's born in the month of Cancer, is oversensitivity and getting very stuck in wallowing in my self-pity and how I feel about myself, rather and focusing that sensitivity to myself and how I'm feeling. And and our feelings, there's a lot of self sense of self. and instead of channeling that sensitivity to others, which is the growth of a cancer. Hi, Elsa, if you're here. The growth of a cancer is taking that tremendous sensitivity and channeling it to care about another person, to feel another person's feelings, to be there for them. So we learned, so Tammuz is a month of weeping, of heat. It's a time that they served idols. So that is the meaning of the word Tammuz. It's brought down, so it means heat. It means, it literally means heat, but it shared the name with this idol of Tammuz that they served. Okay, in the times of the Menashe. Okay, now let's talk about so that's the name of the month of Tammuz and the history of the month of Tammuz. We're on a very surface level. We're gonna get deeper and deeper. Let's talk about the potential of Tammuz. A deeper way to look at the name of Tammuz, it's brought down, I forget by who, I think of the Bnei Yissaschar, that Tammuz could also be divided into two words. Tam, which means the completion, because Tam means whole, of Vav and Zayin. What are Vav and Zayin? Vav and Zayin were the letters of Iyar and Sivan. Whoever was in the monthly Chodesh classes for Iyar and Sivan, Iyar was Vav, Sivan is Zayin, and now we're Ches. They're not usually consecutive. They're actually very usually at random, but here we have a completion, because how does Ches complete Vav and Zayin? Tammuz, which we said is the letter of Ches, because a Chet is really just the way that the Rizal actually says to write the Ches of the Torah. Maybe we have a Sofer here who could actually tell us if that's the way they actually write it, is you write a Vav, and then you write a Zayin, and then you join them with a little line. So a Ches is actually the completion of Vav and Zayin. So what does this tell us? That Tammuz was supposed to be historically, originally intended to be the completion of Vav and Zayin, of Iyar and Sivan. What were Iyar and Sivan? The receiving of the Torah, right? Iyar, we're preparing to receive the Torah. Sivan, we receive the Torah from above. And Tammuz was supposed to be a time when Moshe came down with the Torah, with the Torah after being up for 40 days. He came down on the 17th of Tammuz and was supposed to be had the potential to be the greatest day, the completion of everything that we've done until now. Why? Because until now, the Torah we received was Hashem giving it to us from above. And Tammuz was when, without all the revelation from above, we accept the Torah, we receive the Torah, and we learn the Torah, and we internalize it. So Tammuz was supposed to be, or in its essence, it has the potential to be the completion of fruit, the bringing fruit to fruition, the giving of Hashem, giving us the Torah. We're accepting Hashem's proposal now, right? Hashem is saying, I'm giving it to you, and now we're actually starting married life with Hashem, starting the relationship with Hashem, receiving the Torah, not because Hashem is telling us to, just in a regular, ordinary life, internalizing the Torah. Because of the potential, we know when there's so much potential, and Tammuz is also a month of Din, because we see that the letters of Hashem's name are backwards, so that shows concealment. When Hashem's light is flowing in the greatest way, it's Nisan, when you see revelation from above, all the miracles that happen in Nisan. When Hashem's light is flowing in a very concealed way, it's Hashem's, that's why the month is spelled backwards. The letters of Hashem's name are spelled backwards, because in Tammuz there's a lot of concealment from Hashem. And maybe to give us that space to Hashem to take a step back and for us to receive the Torah from ourselves, right? But this actually only happened, this receiving the Torah we learned many generations later, hundreds of or thousands of years later in the Purim story, right? We say that in the Megillah it says that now they accepted what they'd already begun to accept by the Torah. We were meant to accept it now, but instead of accepting the Torah and receiving it on that day, we had the potential to use our vision and to look towards the mountain, towards Moshe coming, and instead they turned towards other gods. They turned to distractions, to filling that void with negative things, which was the Chet Egel, which actually we learned that remember in Chassidus we explained everything as a positive. The Jewish people weren't really looking in Chassidus to say just to make an idol. They actually needed a visual representation. They said, we have Hashem, right? But we have no one visual to look at, right? Moshe reminds us, he grounds us, he's a tzaddik that we turn to for advice, for leadership. He's a real person. We need someone we could talk to, right? It's great to talk to Hashem, but sometimes I need a leader to just give me advice, to have a visual, because we're visual people and we need to see things. And now Moshe's not here. We need something new and visual. And it says, remember I taught this that Moshe was from the right side of Hashem's chariot, so they said, let's take from the left side, and that's why they created a shore and ox from the left side. So they're actually looking just to have a vision. So it's all about the visual in Tammuz, about correcting the visual. So they use their visualization for something negative. They wanted to have a visual representation of Hashem, which is the essence of Tammuz. However, they did it obviously in a very wrong way. Instead of turning, they should have done is continue turning towards Moshe, to Aaron, to waiting for Moshe. And then what would have happened was that Moshe would have given us the Torah, if not for the Chet Egel. In this week's Parsha, we would have received the Torah. Moshe would have come with us to Eretz Yisrael, because in this week's Parsha is actually the hitting of the rock where Moshe, and then we would have been able to have like the ultimate, go into Eretz Yisrael with Moshe and have the times of Mashiach already, right? A few thousand years ago, close to 2,500 years ago. It was a mistake of taking that tremendous potential of the day. Because of the concealment of Hashem, they were able to, make that mistake and turn to negative things. So we're all about being the takenet on Tammuz. And that's why it's really interesting that every year on that day, it was a very potential day for so much greatness, and when there's potential for so much greatness, we know there's also potential for so much failure and for so much distance as well, and to fall very low. When there's so much, right, their ego can come into place when it's a very fragile state to be in. So therefore, so we actually learn, and I think it's the Rambam that says, Hafachta Yemei Eva L'Simcha, that these 3 weeks of mourning are going to become tremendous days of joy when the Mashiach comes, because inherently, the beginning of creation, this month of Tammuz had tremendous potential for Mashiach, for revelation, for accepting the Geula. It's actually, I heard something really interesting, that there's 21 days between Shiva Sar Tammuz and Tisha B'Av in the 9th of Av. There's 21 days of mourning, and there's also 21 days of Chagim in the Jewish calendar. So it's like in their essence, they each represent, each one of those days are actually like a concentrated 3 weeks of the potential of all the elevation of all the Chagim. So these weeks we're mourning. We're going to talk about that in another class, what we do during this mourning period, how to look at it in a deeper way. But it is a time with tremendous potential for good, but also because so much bad happened over those years, we have to be like cautious on those months and very aware of what's going on and the potential, and to use it for holy things. So
they continue to go on.
What?
I mean, bad things continue to go on.
Every year. Someone explained it. I heard the Rav yesterday at Devorah explain it, like when someone breaks a bone, that place is vulnerable to be broken over and over again, right? Mm-hmm. So in that bone, you want to be extra sensitive, right? So you want to be extra careful about those bones. So the potential of Tammuz is very great. Now, we said that Ches is Tam, Vav, and Zayin, because Tammuz completes the previous 2 months. Now, another cool thing is that Ches is also the chuppah, because Matan Torah we learned was the marriage between us and Hashem. And Ches is also a chuppah that completes the Vav and the Zayin, because the Vav is masculine. We learned that the Vav midos are masculine. The Zayin is Malchus, which is the feminine, the 7th midah, which is Malchus. So the Vav and the Zayin are the masculine and feminine letters, which are united by Ches, takes those 2 letters and connects them with a little bridge to make that chuppah of completion of connecting the masculine and the feminine. Remember last week we were speaking all about the masculine, the arrow, which is like the Vav, and the feminine, which is the receiver, because Zayin is Malchus, which is the space to receive, the womb. Malchus is the womb. So Ches completes the 2 of them and unites them both. So that's what the potential the Ches has to be. The Ches we can choose which Ches we are having in this month. Ches is Choshech and Chet, which is sin, and it's also Ches is a scary letter. We spoke so much about Hey in the past, about Hey being a letter that is the perfection of the creation, how the world is created, with the opening on top for Hey, for Hashem. And Ches is concealment, because it conceals that opening on top that we have to look towards Hashem. So Ches is a letter that's closed, and it says Lepetza Chatas Rovetz. It goes downwards towards like the sin. So Ches is a letter of concealment. But we learned that Ches is also Chaim, which is the source of all life and all goodness. So it says we have to choose Ubacharta B'Chaim, right? The pasuk says Ubacharta B'Chaim. We need to choose to make the Ches a Ches of Chaim, a Ches of Chuppah, of connection and life, to tune into the deeper messages of the Ches, rather than to like be trapped by the din and the concealment of the month of Ches. Another feminine thing about this month is that every month is ruled by a planet, and is this the month that the planet that rules Cancer and Tammuz is the moon, and the moon is the feminine planet, right? It has the cycles just like us. It has its dark sides. It has its fullness. It gets smaller like we do sometimes. We're outward sometimes, and it goes through its cycles just like we do in every way. So the moon rules during this month, and that's also why there's like concealment, because the moon is sometimes concealed. So it has its tides and its shifts. Also, like water, Tammuz is the month of water. Let's go a little bit more into the Zodiac sign. The Zodiac sign of Cancer is the crab, in Hebrew the akrav, and the crab is a water animal. It lives in the water and needs the water to live. And the water, I just blinked out what I was going to say. Why was I speaking about water? What was I saying before that? Water also is a feminine element, because water also has its waves and its tides. It ebbs and it flows. It represents that femininity of the waves that come and go. The waves of life and the waves of the female. Like someone told me, and I feel the same way, that when I'm in the waves and the ocean, I feel as feminine as I can. Like I feel my femininity so strongly, the power of my femininity, the strength of my femininity. So water is our true femininity. So Tammuz has a lot of feminine elements to it. Let's talk about, so Ubacharta B'Chaim is choosing life. What does it mean, Ubacharta B'Chaim, to choose life? Do we get to choose if we live or die? Choosing life, according to Chassidus, is choosing to see the Chaim, the life force behind every creation that's behind the husk of every creation in the world. Instead of choosing to see the husk and the external of this person talking to me, of this experience, choosing B'charta B'chaim, to see the life force behind it, that it's all coming from God, that Hashem is making this event happen, Hashem is creating this event, Hashem is creating this person is God, is a piece of Hashem. This event that's happening is directed by Hashem. So B'charta B'chaim is tuning into the life, the source of life that's creating everything at that moment. Okay, so we talked about the meaning of the word Tammuz, the history of the month of Tammuz, the potential of Tammuz, the letter Ches. And now we're going to talk, Ches is, okay, it doesn't matter, it's enough. About Ches, let's talk about the Zodiac, the crab. Two things about the crab that connect it to Tammuz. One is that the crab grows in water. That's how he grows. The Medrash links the crab to Moshe, who Moshe was hidden and grew in the water also. When he was hidden in the water by his mother, so it's connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. The water helped Moshe grow and saved his life, and all the babies during that time that the water saved their life. So because of that, Hashem pushed off the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, which was supposed to happen in Tammuz, pushed it off a few weeks till Av, so that it wouldn't happen in Tammuz, because Tammuz is in thanks to the water for growing Moshe and saving Moshe's life. So because Tammuz is a water sign, because of the crab and the sign of the water and everything else about Tammuz, so that is the idea of the water part. So he deferred the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash until Av, when Moshe's protection, the protection of Moshe, wasn't ruling in that month. Another thing about a crab, this is so cool. Okay, so a crab has something called an exoskeleton, right? All of us, our skeleton is in our body. So as we grow, our skeleton of our body grows to accommodate us as well, right? Grows to fill us. The crab, his skeleton is an exoskeleton. It's on the outside of his body. So what happens when he grows? He has to shed his skeleton and grow a new one, because it breaks. It doesn't fit his body anymore. It doesn't grow with him because his body grows and it breaks the skeleton. He has to shed it and create a new one as he grows through different stages of life. This teaches us something so profound about life. Just amazing. There's a teaching of the Frierdiker Rebbe about this. The Frierdiker Rebbe is the previous Rebbe whose Yom HaGeula is on Yud Beis Tammuz. He teaches that people complain that they feel pain or discomfort in their life. And he says that chas v'shalom, to think of it as a punishment from Hashem, that, they're discomfortable, Hashem's giving them pain. Rather, he says, this is amazing. Your neshama grows. As you get older, your neshama grows. As you experience growth in your life, as you connect to Hashem, as you grow and mature, your neshama gets bigger and bigger. And sometimes in Chassidus, our spiritual garments aren't growing with it. What does that mean, our spiritual garments? Anyone who's learned Tanya or been here, maybe you've heard that our garments in Tanya are referred to as our thought, speech, and action. They're the garments of our soul, because that's the way garments are, how we express ourselves outwards, and our thought, speech, and action is how we express ourselves through our animal soul and our godly soul. So if your neshama is getting bigger and bigger, you're getting more and more connected to Hashem, you're growing, or the natural growth of a neshama, and your thought, speech, and action aren't growing to accommodate your neshama, with a neshama, what's going to happen is you're going to feel very uncomfortable. Because if you grow, like me, like I had a baby, I grew 1 or 2 sizes. If my clothing if I keep wearing the same clothing, I'm going to be really, really uncomfortable, because I'm going to have pain, discomfort, indigestion, probably digestion problems, a lot of discomfort if I keep trying to fit into the clothing that I fit into, right? If you try to put on shoes that are 2 sizes smaller than you, as your feet grow, you're going to be very uncomfortable. So he says, God forbid that your discomfort or pain in your life is because you did something bad. Rather, your soul is growing, you're connecting more, your neshama is expanding, and your garments of your soul, the thought, speech, and action, have to grow with them to accommodate that the growth of your soul. If you don't, you'll feel discomfort. You'll feel that discomfort. You won't feel aligned. So any discomfort that comes in our lives is kind of a reminder to expand your clothing, expand your garments, take on more, grow in your element of thought, grow in your element of how you speak, and grow. If someone is so holy but they're still speaking lashon hara, right? How they used to before they were holy, it's not going to match up, and they're going to be like that crab, uncomfortable in his shell, and there's going to be breakages, right? And if the longer the discomfort, the more breakages they're going to be, right? The more it's going to crack. There's going to be cracks in our life. So he says, grow your clothing, grow your thoughts, grow in your speech, and grow in your actions. Bring yourself to a higher level to match the growth of your neshama. And actually, the Rebbe said something similar when someone, I wish I could remember the exact words, and someone came to the Rebbe on their birthday. The Rebbe wished them happy birthday and said, another year smarter, another year stronger, another year zicher, another year holier. And I forget what he meant, I forget the exact words. But he said, what do you mean another year holier? As we age, our neshama grows and expands and gets bigger and bigger. Just like our body grows with us, our neshama grows as well. So another year holier, another year, every year our neshama grows as well. We grow. And we need to grow with our neshama. We need to make sure that our lives are growing with the growth of our soul. And if we can keep our clothing comfortable, right, then our neshama will be comfortable in the body and in the lives that we're leading. And I remember, like, the best thing I did was about a year ago after I had the baby. I was miserable. I went into my closet every day and nothing fit me. I was so frustrated. I would literally like freak out inside every time I looked in my closet until I got rid of everything that didn't fit me. And I just bought like 3 things that fit me now in my new body. And I felt so good because it's so frustrating and discomforting when none of your clothing fit you. And when I made peace, and I used to have like keep clothing from like before I had any kids, like these teeny little clothing. And I finally like just gave them all away. I'm like, I'm not going to fit into those clothing. I need bigger clothing to expand, to accommodate mommy me, right? Mom bod me. And accept that and acknowledge that I'm gonna have to buy new clothing for my new body, for my new mom body, right? And that's beautiful. And instead of being sad or upsetting and frustrating to like, I'm not gonna fit into these clothing, it was so freeing. It was such an amazing feeling. It's like, oh wow, now I have clothing I don't have to feel uncomfortable in and feel bad that I'm not that size. I'm happy I'm this size, right? This is my size I'm meant to be. And it just embraced that. It was such a like healthy, and anytime there's something too small on me, I right away put it in a bag. If I don't fit into it by 6 months, like it's gone. Like I just don't want it in front of me to remind me like that I don't need to be smaller, right? And I actually heard Oprah Winfrey say something incredibly similar, that sometimes as we grow and become our best versions of ourselves, there's going to be people in our lives that are going to say something like, who does she think she is, right? Because like, who does she think she is? She thinks she's so full of herself. And Oprah says, and tell them, yes, I am. I am so full of myself. I am so full of myself. And people, it's like if you have people in your life that aren't growing with you, they see your growth and your expansiveness and the way you live life in such a large, amazing way, being all full of yourself and knowing yourself so strongly and feeling confident in yourself. For them, it's scary because they don't recognize that and it's not familiar to them. So they'll be afraid of that. And she said, they're not going to say, oh, I'm afraid of that because it's, I don't recognize it. They're going to say, you're so full of yourself. And you should say, yes, I am. And I thought that was just so beautiful. She's like, may your cup runneth over. Just to be full of yourself and overflowing with the love of knowing who you are and how great you are, and not needing to fit yourself into smaller clothing to accept your greatness or to lower. And often I really resonate. Sometimes we're in a space where we feel like I have to minimize myself for the people I'm around, right? Because they can't accept or appreciate me, and I feel like uncomfortable after. Like, do I have that social skills? Why was I so uncomfortable? And it's sometimes we feel like we need to make ourselves smaller because another person can't like accept us as we are, like as our expanses. I don't mean to take up space and be loud and take up over other people. I just mean that you don't have to lower your conversation to speak about other people if you're in a space where you're above that and you don't want to talk about that. We don't need to lower ourselves to fit into another person's smaller box. We just need to bring people up to us, to continue to share only positivity and growth and inspire everyone around us to come to us, or just surround ourselves with people who can handle us. Someone who can handle our greatness and our growth will be so happy for us. They'll be so inspired and happy for your growth and the greatness and being so full of you. And they'll say, I see you are just so happy and full of joy for yourself. So that was for me like the crab. Like the crab needs to shed his outer clothing. We need to shed our previous clothing, the previous conceptions we have of ourselves, the conceptions that hold us back from expanding to the levels that we want to expand to, that our inner self, right? Our inner body is growing, our soul is growing. Let us move our life to accommodate that level, to let us elevate our lives, the people around us, the clothing that we wear, our thoughts, the way we talk, to match the growth that we're experiencing on the inside. So that's the message we learned from Cancer, from the crab. And that actually
they get rid of their They get rid of their shell, don't they?
They shed their shell, and that's like shedding your clothing. Just get rid of all the things that keep you small, that are making you feel like you have to make yourself smaller rather than making a space a big. This is a very Tammuz idea, because there's some ways where you can try to make yourself smaller. And in Tammuz, although there's a lot of concealment, and we see that it's a month with the concealment of Hashem, it's a month of darkness, it's a month that a lot of bad things happened. There's so many ways to look at it, right? We learned in the Talmud that when the Tanaim, when the rabbis, the sages saw the destruction of the Beis Mikdash, they all began to weep, and Rabbi Akiva began to laugh. Right? And his friend, I forget who it was,
right.
Rabbi something, asked him, why are you laughing? How could you laugh at the destruction of the holy Beis Mikdash? And he was able to look at it in a completely different way and say that I'm laughing because I'm overjoyed, because the prophecy says that first the Beis Mikdash will be destroyed, and all these bad things will happen, and then there'll be an even greater Beis Mikdash built. And now that this is happening, I know that the next part will happen as well, and we're closer to that next stage. So he's able to look beyond. So there's grief, and it's okay to have pain and to experience and to acknowledge our feelings, to be aware of our pain, but then we move on to the next stage. So now what? Now where will I channel that grief? What will I do with that grief? Will I use it to create and to look forward to greater things? Or will I remain stuck in that stage of grief, which is which is the negative side of Tammuz, of Cancer, of feeling myself? Will I be stuck in myself and my feelings about it and self-pity, like weeping for the Tammuz? Or will I move on from that pain, take a moment to reflect the pain, and then move on to what will I do with that pain? How will I create? How will I grow from that pain, from that experience? What will I do with that for another person? So seeing in the dark is the correction of sight. So that's what the crab is able to like see, that you're not experiencing suffering or pain, chas v'shalom, in your life because you're bad. Rather, it's a sign of how big you are and how you need to just expand. So you're uncomfortable, your discomfort in your life is a showing that your clothing and your garments are too small, and you're just discomfort. You need to expand your life right now to accommodate you. And that's the idea of perfecting our sight. Then in Tammuz, we are perfecting our element of sight. By the way, on a tangent, we said that this every month has a shevet. This month's shevet is Reuven. What does Reuven have to do with sight? What? Reu, exactly. Reuven is the month of sight. Now, where did the Jewish people go wrong? Another thing that happened in Tammuz, I forgot to mention it, but not on the 17th of Tammuz, is very much connected to sight. Sight in Tammuz is when the Meraglim went out to scout Eretz Yisrael. And it's when they used their eyes to look at the bad in Eretz Yisrael rather than to look at the good. There was so much beauty around them. Someone passed me a black marker. There's so much beauty around them. And instead of looking at the beauty in Eretz Yisrael, they noticed the few things that might not be perfect. And that in that way, they took that power of sight and they used it to see something beautiful and to notice that one thing on the floor, right? That's not perfect. And then that's why in Tammuz they contaminated the element of sight. And then in Av, they came back on Tisha B'Av. They came back and they told the Jewish people about how they were afraid of going to Eretz Yisrael, and the Jewish people listened and accepted it. And that's in Av next month. It's the element of Shmiya we're going to listen to, and it's also the shevet of Shimon, which is Lishmoa. So in this month it's Reuven. It's very much connected to how we see things, and next month it's how we hear things. There's a professor of study, the professor who showed a paper like this to his students. It was a psychology professor, and he said, "What do you see?" And what did the students say? The black dot. And he kept saying, "What else do you see? Anything else?" And they're like, "The meaning of life, the point of all existence." And he said, "Is there anything else you see?" And one student raised his hand and he said, "I see a beautiful white paper." Right? And it's so easy and natural to look at that black dot and to notice first the black dot in a life full of goodness, where we're having the best day. We have such a gifted, blessed life, and we can zero in the one thing that didn't go perfectly, because that's the trappings of Re'iyah. And seeing on a higher level is noticing, hi Isalia, is making a very conscious effort to first look at all the goodness. And it takes just a switch of our mindset and perception. That's why I think writing these positive mantras is such a reminder. Sometimes it just takes a deep breath. Just to write inhale, exhale, and just take a deep breath, and then suddenly remember to stop zeroing in on the black and to look at the deeper. So the Meraglim sinned with their eyes, with the Re'iyah in Tammuz, and we correct that in Tammuz by looking deeper, by seeing the beauty even in the dark. And we learn that in the dark we see the brightest stars. So we can look at the dark and say it's so dark, or we can look at the dark and say, look up for a minute, look towards the higher, right? And see the beauty in the darkness. See that the pain in my life is showing how holy I am, and I want to just make more room to accommodate my greatness. So we actually learned that there's two types of worlds. There's the revealed world, and then there's the concealed world. Okay, Dvorah? And the concealed world of good comes from a much higher level, and it comes down in a concealed way. And light that comes from darkness, we learn, is much deeper, and that's why we light the menorah only at night. Light that comes through darkness. And we can have a dark situation in the world and look into it and find the light that comes from it. The light is so much more transformative. It is a much more powerful light, the light that comes from the darkness, rather than the light that comes from the light. So we want to train our eyes in this month to rectify the sin of the Meraglim, to, instead of looking at something negative. In Shabbos I run a kids program at Tfilat Eladim for kids, and I have all the kids just share one thing they love about Eretz Yisrael, positive, right? Because it's so easy to complain, God forbid, about this amazing land, because there's small things that are, frustrating. About the bureaucracy and things I won't even mention, because we only want to speak about the good, and there's so much good and beauty. So it's a reminder to just go around and train to say something good about your life, good about your day, instead of focusing on the one thing that didn't go well. So those are just reminders to elevate our eyesight in Tammuz, to see things on a higher level, to have an ascension, and to see deeper, to look deeper into everything, and do b'charta b'chaim, to choose to see the life force behind everything. Why is Hashem creating this? What good is there in this situation? Right? It's such a powerful tool. When something so bad is happening to you, it transforms, right? We're going through, Devorah helped me through this. I was going through something personal that was difficult, and it was like, what is Hashem's, obviously this is good. Everything that comes from Hashem is good. So what is the good message in this? What good will I take out of this? We were talking about it, Karen and I, right? Too, as well. So seeing in a deeper way, and the month of Tammuz is the best month to work on our sight. And actually, my friend Jenna, who's a yoga instructor who helps me with some of these mantras, she actually told me that there's eye yoga, and it's strengthening our eyesight and like looking to all the directions. And she has like different like eye exercises that you can do, and strengthening our physical eyes, but also eye yoga and training our eyes to eye yoga, spiritual eye yoga, to see the good, to look at something like you can see everything bad, and then you could just see the good behind it in a moment. Right. So it's training our eyesight sight, to see not just the good in everything, but that everything comes from Hashem, to see the source of everything that's going on in your life, to see the beauty in your body, right? So easy to look in the mirror and see the one thing we don't like about our body, rather than all the beauty in our body, and see like, wow, if I was someone else looking at my body, I would be like, that's a dang beautiful body, right? But it's so easy to look at that one thing we don't like, that one imperfection. So to train ourselves to stop looking at the black dot, to zoom out, take a deep breath, and notice all of the beauty, and see how the ugliness like fades away, right? And fades away into that blends into the beauty. And part of like the beauty is the like, you know, what makes something so beautiful is like watercolor, is that it's not perfect, is that it's like all the mistakes and all the blending and the non-perfection, the things you don't meant to happen, that's what's beautiful in it.
Actually, they had a whole research. They said that like the things that are beautiful have like a symmetry in them.
Yeah.
But then they took the most beautiful people.
Yeah.
And they tried making them totally symmetrical.
And they weren't as beautiful.
They were hideous. Yeah.
Wow,
It's
that's
always
so
like
cool.
that they have some sort of symmetry, but something that isn't totally.
That's so crazy. Okay, another thing about, so we spoke about the crab, 2 parts of the crab. We spoke about sight and perfecting and elevating our sight to a higher level of sight, to seeing things on a higher level. Now let's take sight even deeper. There is the word sight in Hebrew is, anyone know the shoresh? Re'i, it's re'iyah. And it shares the shoresh of another word in Hebrew called ra'aya, which is a proof, to prove that something. And they share a source because they actually, how do you prove something is there? How do you prove something? When you see it. Seeing is believing. Yeah. Seeing is proof. In the world that we live in, when you see something, if you saw something with your own eyes, there's no way I could convince you that it didn't happen, right? There's no proof. If you heard something or heard about something, I could convince you out of it. If you have an idea, a thought, I can convince you differently. But if you saw something happen, there's no explanation, there's no matter of amounts of proofs I can give you that it didn't happen will be able to convince you it didn't happen. Now, we might think it only works that way, one way, right? Anything I see is proof that it happened or that it's real. If I see you, it's real. Things I don't see aren't real, right? If I don't see it, I don't know if it's real. You need to prove to me that it's real, right? I can't see emotion, I can't see godliness, I can't see gravity. You have to prove to me that those things are real because I can't see them. And Chassidus actually tells us that it works, even though it might seem like we say that sight is our strongest element. It holds much more neurological nerve tissues than any other sense. Like compared to hearing, which is like 3% of our nerve tissues, sight holds a huge percentage of our nerve tissues because sight is very real to us, and it makes things very real. So seeing something is very strong. And we learn that when we hear something, it's just called hearsay, right? Because hearing is not as real to us. And that's what we spoke about when the Torah was given, that we saw that which was heard and we heard that which was seen. What does that mean? That there's things in life that we see. We see the physical things. We see the concealments, the physical world that Hashem made. We don't get to see the spiritual things. Now, you might say that it works only one way. If I see it, it's real. But if I didn't see it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means I can't see it, right? But we learned something crazy. Chassidus says that anything that is real has to be able to be seen, even if you didn't see it. It has meaning that if it's raya, if it's proof that it's real, is that it has to be able to be seen as well. It has to be seen. Now, obviously, in our world, in the Gullus world, we don't get to see everything that's real. We don't get to see Hashem. We don't get to see godliness and the message and the hand of Hashem and everything. We just have to believe it, right? Without seeing it. But seeing and believing in their essence are the same, or have to be parallel. That if it's there, I could see it. And that's how it's going to be in the truth of things, in the deeper layer. When Mashiach comes, anything that's real, we're going to be able to see. So these days of transforming sight are really going to be the days we learn that Mashiach is more of a time to come for Mashiach to come during these 3 weeks and during this month of Tammuz. And this month when we can tap into sight and see beyond, and when Mashiach will come, we learn that we'll be able to see face to face, panim el panim, the things that we can't see now. So it will be shown, it will come out into, it will be the potential to see everything that is real, which is, Hashem is real, obviously, right? There's many things that we don't see that are not real, right? Like thoughts we don't see that are real. But all the things that we can't see right now, we just have to believe them. Believe that Efrat Shkacha practice. Believe that Hashem is, creating us every moment. Those things that we need to remind ourselves all the time. When Mashiach comes, we'll be able to see them in a much deeper way. We'll be able to see them face to face. We'll be able, just like, what's an example of it that not for us, because we can't see it. It says Adam Rishon, the Rizal, they were able to see the flow of Hashem's light. However that looks, the vibrations, whatever it looked like, physically see the flow. And that's how did Adam name the animals? It says that he looked at them and he saw the flow of their energy from Hashem, the shape of it. And he said, okay, the shape of your energy is a Shin, Vav, and Resh, so your name is Shor, because that is the way that I see the light flowing to you. The Rizal is able to look at a person and see everything about them physically, all the spiritual things. He could physically see them. He could tell them everything about themselves, who their Gilgal was, the things that we cannot see at all. some people whose eyesight were so deep, they were able to see beyond all the layers and see on another level, see on the levels of the higher worlds. They were able to ascend to Silos, Bria, whichever world they were to see, and see things that we know that they can be seen, but they can't be seen by us in our very Megusham eyes. So when we elevate our eyesight to the times of Mashiach to have true Re'iyah, we'll actually be able to see the things that cannot be seen. And that's how we know that for one moment, when Hashem gave them the Torah, it says, Shamu at kolot, right? They heard that which was seen and they saw which was heard. For 1 minute, Hashem revealed to them everything. There was revelation. Hashem is talking to them. Suddenly, they saw all the things that they usually call out. They just heard about. And they're like, now we see everything. We see how the whole world is created with the letters of Hashem, the words of Hashem. And that which was seen usually, the world, the physical, they had to hear about it. They had to be reminded that there's a world. They had to be told, there's a real world of physical things. They're like, I don't see it. I just see God's light, and I don't see anything else, right? So that's true seeing. So in Tammuz, we exercise visualization, visualizing a world where we could see all of where we can, in some way, even if we can't see physically, to see in a way that we can feel and believe that this is all from Hashem, and train ourselves to the eyesight of Mashiach, to seeing where it says that we're supposed to imagine the Beis HaMikdash being built in Tammuz, to visualize it, to learn about the building of the Beis HaMikdash, and to visualize it happening, to manifest it. So we can manifest so much with our sight, with our thoughts, and especially with visualization. When we can visualize something, a tool that actually was really helpful for me, it's like a tool I listened to in a podcast, was sometimes there's someone around that you have tension with, and it's so hard to feel yourself because you're in a party or somewhere and there's someone that you have so much stress with and tension with, you just had a huge fight with, right? So how do you, in any situation in life, and how do you just act like yourself? And there was this tiny little tool called As If. It says visualize in your mind how you would be as if this person wasn't here, as if anything in your life wasn't happening. I'm in the car and I'm really late. Visualize as if I had all the time in the world. And when you visualize how you would be, suddenly I'm able to do that, and it literally changed everything for me. So I can be somewhere where someone is normally causing me tension, I don't know how to be, and then I just imagine myself, how would I be if this person wasn't here? And then I just go and implement that vision. So visualizing on a higher level, being anything in our life, how would I be right now if I wasn't afraid, if I had all the courage to say what I wanted to say? I would imagine what I would say, and then once I imagine it, it makes it very real for me, and I can implement it. So imagining that whatever is blocking you isn't there, whatever fear or person or thing in your life is blocking you isn't there, and then drawing that down into action is such a powerful tool. So this is a month in so many ways to use the power of our vision, to look deeper, to look in the dark, to see the good in the darkness, to see the depth of everything in our lives, to see the source, to see the Chaim of everything, and to just use visual manifestations, to visualizing what we want in our lives, all the brachas we want in our life. By visualizing it and making it real for us, we can manifest it more and have much stronger emunah. So visualizing is believing. If we want to believe something is going to happen, try to visualize how it would look. How would that look? Like the perfect marriage, the perfect, healing. If I want to be healthy in a certain way, if I need more, money or time, a house, right? And visualizing it as much as we can to manifest it in our thoughts, in our mind, and really tuning into elevating our sight in this month. So thank you so much for joining. Did I do everything? We did the name of the month, the letters of the month, there were some really beautiful things.
What's the color?
I don't know the color of the month. I never did that. It's not in Sefer Yetzirah, so, and it's not in any of the sources that I look in.
Gotcha.
I'm sure some other sources have it, but I don't.
Possibly blue.
I'll end up with a joke. I'm going to end up with a story of a beautiful Reb Nachman Breslev. He says this beautiful teaching on the pasuk in Tehillim in Perek Lamed Zayin. It says, the od ma'at, the ein rasha, v'hisponanta al makomo v'einenu. What does that mean? Soon there'll be no more rasha, and you'll look at the place where he is, and he's no longer. And Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Breslev said, a bit more, and wicked will be no more. For you will gaze at his place, and he'll be gone. He said that what David HaMelech meant in a deeper way was that by ignoring the wickedness in him, by looking at him and ignoring and not seeing, right? The ein rasha, you look at him and you don't see the rasha in him. You're looking at this child and you only look at this person and you gaze at the good in him. Then it says v'hispananto al makomo. You look at where he is. Look at who he is as a person. Look at where he's from, the source and all the goodness. Ve'einenu, and the bad will disappear. And it's such a powerful tool. When you look at a child and there's so much, and they're you want to get stuck on they're pushing all your buttons, right? They're being really bad actually, right? But if you look at them and ignore all the bad that you see and just see the beauty in them and then show them that, it will reflect back to you. The bad will disappear because they'll want to reflect back the goodness that you see in them. So if we can really look at somebody and just ignore all the bad things we see and focus in and say, this person is good, everyone is good, everyone is created in Hashem's image, this person is so sweet, and they must be in pain, they must be needing whatever they need in a deeper way. There's so much beauty in that person, that beauty will reflect back. And I'll end up with a joke. There's this famous story of the teacher in the Soviet Union who picks on the Jewish kid, and she says, Yaakov, she's an atheist and she wants to prove that God doesn't exist. She says, Yaakov, can you see God? He says, no. He says, can you touch God? He says, no. She says, so everyone, obviously there is no God. So the student says, madam, can I ask you a question? She says, can you see your brain? She says, of course not. We can't see brain. She says, can you touch your brain? She goes, no, of course not. He says, so obviously you have no brain, right? So that was like about the idea of not everything that we see now doesn't mean if we can't see it, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But when Mashiach comes, it says, V'ra'u kol basar yachdav, so let us all usher in the time when basar, we'll be able to see flesh to flesh, all of the flow of energy, how everything is, the MS of everything. And let's do the Avodah and Tammuz to come much closer to this reality by rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash in our mind, correcting the element of vision and visualization, and train our eyes to see only the positive and inner dimension of all creations and all people to bring Mashiach closer. Thanks so much for joining.